All right. With that done, we have got the return of our very important segment 60 Seconds of Science with Dr. Hattie. Professor, what we got?
Well, Ken, since the EPA administrator has called efforts to fight climate change a cult, this week we are highlighting some stories related to climate change.
Let's do it.
The EPA plans to weaken regulations which limit power plant emissions of mercury, amongst other toxins. This news comes as a separate study this week has shown that even as global emissions have begun to plateau, levels of mercury in Arctic wildlife could continue to rise for centuries. Climate change continues to shrink yields of important crops like wheat and maize, with losses expected to get worse in coming decades. To combat this, scientists are developing various ways to help plants deal with the heat. As the U.S. grips for the first major summer heat wave, the National Weather Service has issued its first ever heat advisory in Alaska on June 13th. Cities like Fairbanks and Juneau have been seeing highs in the 80s all this week. Snow in the Sierra Nevada mountains is nearly gone, melting much earlier than usual. This, coupled with other factors, could lead to a higher probability of more large wildfires in California this summer. And finally, a new study has found that banning plastic bags has worked to help limit litter on shorelines of lakes, rivers, and beaches throughout the United States. Areas with such policies saw a 25 to 47% reduction in the share of plastic bag litter on shores. Ken, that is 60-ish seconds of science. Where would you like to go?
To Alaska. One day I would like to get to Alaska. When you talk about climate change and global warming and how to fight and all the things and things we've been talking about for years now, if not decades, right? There's a lot of times where, there's a lot of, not, I don't want to say nuance, but there's a lot of little details, a lot of things that happen, things we need to study the effects of, all these kind of things that are above my mind and pay grade. And I'm not good in a debate with someone at a bar to try to convince them that it's all real. If they throw some Tucker Carlson like stats at me that I'm like, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, man. But it's the Alaska thing that I find it very easy to point to and just go, do you see the first ever heat advisory in Alaska should ring some sort of alarm bell? Should make you go, let me at least kind of dig into what's going on. It's surface level. It's small in the grand scale of all things, but it's huge in the big picture that keeps rolling on. You know what I mean, Addie? You're smart. What does that do to you?
It definitely sets off some alarm bells for me. For the record, this is not record heat in Alaska. The record high in Fairbanks is 96 degrees. It was set in 1969.
It's a good year. We went to the
But
moon, maybe.
and there is a little bit of the National Weather Service is issuing heat advisories for the first time because of the way they issue that. Like it's the option to issue one in Alaska is new. They usually just do special weather statements, but it still should be an alarm bell. It still should be an alarm bell. It should be an alarm bell, especially because this spring, like other parts of the country, Alaska experienced unusually cool weather. It wasn't until Wednesday that Fairbanks, Alaska reached 70 degrees for the first time. Anecdotally, the similar things have happened in New England this summer. I finally had to turn on my air conditioning in New England this week because it has been 60 degrees since like April.
Right. Yeah,
And
I haven't turned my AC on.
July.
Yeah, I haven't turned my AC on until today. And we're in June in the valley of LA where, you could cook an egg on a sidewalk some days.
Right. Like it's just like earlier this year they were having a lot of storms and high winds and whatnot in places where I have family who don't necessarily believe in climate change. And I wanted to be like, is this typical for this kind of time of year? No, it isn't. Do you think there might be a reason for that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I haven't kept up on, and I don't want to put you on the spot if you haven't researched it, but like there's stuff going on with flies. I know all about the bees. My hometown, Pismo Beach, is one of the places for the monarch butterflies to stop, and I think I talked about this on the Blathering before, but there's now less of them. Not in the way where like someone has told you there's less of them. in the way where when I was there during the season, the Monarch season last year, it was noticeable that there were like it's no longer just some guy in a forest ranger hat going, there's less of them. You're like, why isn't there as many of them now?
Yeah, I
Um,
visually cannot see them. I
yeah,
think we did either I've read the same story, Ken, or we did that as a story in the
I
past few
think,
weeks.
yeah.
But I mean, just tonight when I was looking through the last 2 weeks of news to bring this together, like there was an article on, new tick diseases because diseases are spreading farther, in
Oh,
part
yes, I
because
think
they
yes,
can, higher temperatures mean the breeding grounds are changing and whatnot. Like,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know what will be the wake up call, but I more and more every day I fear that it's going to be the unfortunate, like, catastrophic event that there's no coming back from, and everyone's just going to be like,
I think yeah,
oh.
right, and that's the unfortunate thing. And my cousin's checking in from Vegas, where it's currently 114. Hello, cousin Michelle. Hello, everyone over there, my Vegas family. But I think when it's 114 in April in I don't know, Boston or somewhere, I know it gets hot there. Jared, shut up. But you know what I mean, where it's like you're stepping outside and you're just bubbling. I unfortunately I think it's gonna be Book of Eli before a lot of hardliners think maybe because every once in a while, even I think at one point Lindsey Graham, who despise with all of my heart, had some reversal of opinion on climate change, and it's like it's like we were talking up top of the show when you got Tucker Carlson of all people laying into Ted Cruz, laying into the idea that you should support the government of Israel based solely on what the Bible says to you and not even understanding what that meant. Like, does it cause any kind of change? And I don't know. And that's part of what is frustrating, right, Addie, especially to someone within the science community.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know if it's going to be that it has to happen to you, but like there have been plenty of big events that affect people, but like I just go back to the weatherman can only say this is an unprecedented event so many times
Right,
before you have to start
right.
saying we're having a lot of, like, it seems like every day you tell me I'm having an unprecedented event.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it seems
yeah,
like every time it rains you tell me it has never rained this much before.
yeah. It's like, yeah, it's like I don't know. It's like when we let's stop calling every musical artist a genius because then the real geniuses get lost in the shuffle. I don't know. I'm throwing that out there as a joke, but like, yeah, I think it should be called unprecedented every time it's unprecedented. But when it ends up,
Oh,
but
it
look,
absolutely should, but how many
yeah,
times do they call it unprecedented before you wake up and realize, they're saying that word a lot?
it's just so tight. It's like I believe politics are everywhere, and I used to be an apolitical person, and that's so far from who I am now. Politics are everywhere. That's why I get upset if you try to debate Star Wars with me from a certain point of view, because you might be part of a generation that kind of allowed Gamergate and alt-right Nazis to enter the movie talk space because of things you felt about Rey or something like that, and I get upset. And so with this kind of stuff too, where it's just like, why? It's human nature. It will not change, but why does it have to happen to you or someone close? We all, and by the way, again, I've changed because of that kind of stuff, right? As a young kid in LA, being exposed to different people, different cultures, different sexual identities,
Mm-hmm.
things I had not experienced in my town, that changed me. So I'm part of it too. I'm part of the problem. So it's not even finger pointing. It's just, how do we overcome that? And to me, it is continuing to have these conversations. Just had a conversation recently with someone close to me, and I was like, I'm not. I might lose my medical. I'm waiting to see what happens. And I saw it dawn on them, and they were like, no. Medicaid and Medi-Cal, it's like two different things. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. And I might be affected by what you voted for, and you can see it dawn on them, but I don't know how that goes into actions yet, and that's part of the frustration.
Yep, and I've had similar conversations around DEI, and I had a conversation with somebody about trying to explain to them that a grant that I wrote, that part of which was going to be expanding, like, and whatnot, women in STEM is probably going to get rejected because that's DEI and that's not a thing anymore. And they were like, well, that's not DEI. DEI is like making sure men don't use women's bathrooms. And I was like, nope, that's not what that is.
Yeah, not what it is. And what I'm trying to do is and when it's appropriate, and sometimes there's situations where it is appropriate to get angry. I want to be clear about that. But when it's time for me to slow down and have conversations, I'm going to try to be better about that. Because that's a little bit honey versus salt or whatever that old dumb saying is about how you attract the fly. Like that has been more valuable to me recently. And again, it's not always the case. And for anyone out there who knows, you know, either people you got to cut off or conversations you can only have, or maybe it deserves to be a shouting match. But I'm just trying to find those ways forward, and including, you know, listening to you and talk about, you know, what you teach us here, Addie.
Well, and that's why I would just like to say, once again, I'm very grateful to you and the Blathering community for letting me come on and do this once a week and highlight science and have the opportunity to educate all of us on, like, even I learn things every week when I do this segment because I am not an expert in everything. And I appreciate the opportunity for us all to learn a little bit more, because by learning a little bit more, we hopefully make the world a slightly better place.
I agree, and everyone agrees. Sean McCabe says, you're amazing, Duck, and it's true. Addie, thank you so much. Go listen to some Chaperone and rewatch the Rays highlights from last night. You've earned it.
Thank you very much, Ken. Thank you.